I saw the post at a red light. It was early, the hour when the town still pretends to be kind. I had dropped the kids at school and was waiting for the arrow to turn green when my phone buzzed. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent a single message, "Is this real?" Under it was the screenshot. The words were clean, no profanity, no specifics, just a declaration written the way my father always wrote things, final, moral, impossible to argue with without sounding guilty. He didn't name what I'd done. He didn't have to. The absence was the point. It invited imagination, and imagination is always crueler than fact. By the time I reached work, the post had been shared dozens of times. By lunch, hundreds. By evening, it was no longer my father said, it was everyone knows. I didn't respond, not because I was strong, because I couldn't find a response that wouldn't trap me inside his frame. Any denial would sound defensive. Any explanation would sound like confession. Silence, I learned that day, is sometimes the only way to avoid helping your own erasure. The phone started ringing anyway. Aunts, old neighbors, women who had watched me grow up and men who had never noticed me until now. Some called to check on me. Others called to ask what I had done. A few called to say nothing at all, letting the silence do its work before hanging up. What surprised me most was how calm everyone sounded. There was no outrage, no shock, just a collective adjustment, as if the town were rearranging furniture around a new truth. At home that night, my children were quieter than usual. Not scared, just observant. My eldest asked why one of her friend's mothers had stopped smiling at pickup. My youngest asked what "desound" meant. I told them it was an adult word for an adult problem and left it at that. It was the first lie of many, all designed to keep them out of a story that wasn't finished yet. My husband didn't see the post until the next morning, not because he was avoiding social media, but because no one sent it to him. That, too, was deliberate. The town understood power dynamics better than it admitted. My father was issuing a command, not starting a discussion. Including my husband would have meant acknowledging that I wasn't alone. When he did see it, he didn't react the way people expect in these stories. No shouting, no dramatic declarations. He read it twice, put his phone down, and asked me a question that had nothing to do with Facebook. What does he stand to lose if this turns into specifics? I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I grew up understanding authority as something you don't question until it fails you personally. My father was respected because he was decisive. He ran committees, signed documents, mediated disputes. People said he was fair because he was firm. In our house, his word ended conversations, not violently. Efficiently, shame in our family was a public tool. It kept everyone in line without needing explanation. You didn't need to know what rule you'd broken, only that you had. By the third day, my workplace asked if I wanted to take some time. They were careful, polite, already distancing themselves. Reputation travels faster than clarification. I declined. Going to work was the only place where my name still belonged to me. By the fifth day, my mother called. She didn't mention the post. She asked if I was eating properly. She said people talk when they're bored. She said things would calm down if I stayed quiet. Her voice carried the familiar suggestion that endurance was the same as virtue. That night, my husband stayed up after everyone else went to bed. I found him at the dining table surrounded by papers I hadn't seen in years, old property records, meeting minutes, stamped letters. He hadn't gone looking for revenge. He'd gone looking for patterns. My father had always been meticulous. That was his strength, and, as it turned out, his weakness. Systems reward consistency until they don't. Somewhere along the way, small accommodations had hardened into practices. Nothing dramatic, no secret lives, just procedures that relied on everyone agreeing not to look too closely. The thing he was hiding wasn't shameful in the way gossip likes. It was fragile. It required trust. It required silence. It required a reputation for moral authority. Public accusations are useful when you need to remind people who controls the narrative. But they have a flaw: they invite attention. My husband didn't confront my father. He didn't threaten. He didn't post anything online. He made 3 phone calls, sent 2 emails, and requested a meeting through channels that had nothing to do with family. The response wasn't immediate. Authority rarely is, but it was precise. A letter arrived a week later, official, neutral, addressed correctly. It requested clarification regarding records my father had overseen for years. It was not accusatory. It was worse than that. It was procedural. The town didn't hear about the letter right away. What they noticed first was the pause. The Facebook post disappeared without explanation. No follow-up, no correction. Just gone. My father stopped attending the meetings he never missed. Someone else chaired the committee that week. Someone quieter. People began to avoid the topic. Conversations shifted when I entered rooms. Not hostile now, careful. The kind of careful reserved for situations where certainty has been withdrawn. My children felt it before I did. The questions stopped. Smiles returned, awkward but present. Invitations resumed, cautiously. The town hadn't apologized. It had recalibrated. My father never called. My mother did once. She said things were complicated. She said he was under stress. She said family matters shouldn't involve outsiders. I told her that public posts invite public processes. She didn't disagree. She just went quiet. There was no confrontation scene, no moment where he admitted anything. Power doesn't always collapse dramatically. Sometimes it just loses its echo. Months later, an announcement was made. Administrative changes, early retirement, a statement about health. The language was generous. The implication was clear. Authority intervenes best when it doesn't need applause. People ask me sometimes how it felt to win. I don't use that word. Nothing was restored. My relationship with my parents didn't recover. Some relatives still don't speak to me. The town didn't suddenly become brave. It just learned a new boundary. What I gained was narrower and heavier dignity without spectacle. I learned that silence can be strategic, but only if someone is willing to do the unglamorous work beneath it. I learned that public shaming depends on private truth staying buried. I learned that inherited power looks solid until it's asked to explain itself. Most of all, I learned that you don't have to defeat a system to step out of it. The post is gone now. Screenshots still exist, of course. Things like that never fully disappear. But when my children search my name, they find other things first. Ordinary things, professional things, a life that wasn't reduced to a sentence written by someone else. The town went silent not because it understood the truth, but because it understood the risk of assuming it again. And that, quietly, was enough.